Borona, Sanji Gujong, Sanji Gong, Sava Lame Yala Guzanza, Dazu Simji, Lo Chusan Doors, Yellow Dozo, London Doors, Yellow Dozo, Long Treva Severs, and Yellow Dozo, and Treva Ishis and Java, Sinjela Dozo. Oh, yeah, that Tomad. Non cut and Yampesin Jintam, New Dolana made by Yantaba, Zuba Sancho, which is Jennijan, Topper Sa. The net day cheat at the net, Tambuch, Surgeon, the Nien at the net, Tanga Caps Papatin, Jasela, the Surgeon, the Nien at the net, Hobjon Yaposi, Yamne Yaposi, the net, Mashiba Tam Shippersi, Shiba Kona Condom Poversi goes, and Betany, or Kono Tenders Gores.
So first of all, please generate the motivation to bring all the mother sentient beings throughout space to the state of the unsurpassable enlightenment, Buddhahood. So with this motivation, please listen to these teachings on the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas, and please study it well and put it into practice well. And please generate the motivation to learn whatever you don't yet know and to increase your knowledge of what you already know. Kasang Geber this sung Sapsuni Geber.
Susum Deva Zosisabra, Yuzashin, and Jibechi, the Nayamanja, Tarpa Company, Dondanya, Jasela, yes.
So, okay. So then let's go to verse 9. We reached verse 9, and it says, "The pleasure of the three realms is as fleeting as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass, vanishing in a single moment. Striving for the supreme state of never-changing liberation is the Bodhisattva's practice."
다 가장 제파데 되니 가래리다 세나 제파데게 돈다데 다 소소 니송게 동아예나리 다다기 나랑 용이바 동아 침차 충수되다 탐지 되니 나게 제왕마마 되니 먹여발래래 띠네 되니 동아 탐지 중화레스 된드 다 다다 륜들라시 다다 나랑 르틴데 되니 되니 나랑게다 동하게 좀 먹여봤더니 가래이나 침보이나리 충청이나리 처음에 빵기스 동다대시도 동하 먹여 센서등아 수다 먹여 침보 배뇨모 바쇼 침보 제네 되니 심지에는 노세 침보세 야바이나 동하게 저리 양아란소치 생각다네 남도 충청 되니 나고고네 배 진짜 충청 된다 먹여봤던데 대바히 대바이나 그때 망보 산로 되니 고 니마치 되니 대동하고 저 침보 창로 망보서 dom로 와서 대인도 되니 나게 먹여 침보이나 충청이나 되니 강특특네 빵기 빵쥐톱스네 빵기 배소 지기 인세 다 가장 돈다 대인 바스.
So yesterday we talked about verse 8. So the meaning of this verse 8 was that there's this suffering wherever the suffering of the three lower realms and the suffering that we are experiencing now in this life, any smaller and larger suffering that we are experiencing, all comes from the karma of non-virtuous actions. So now in this life we should make the strong determination to abandon any kind of non-virtue, any small kind of non-virtue and any larger non-virtues. So any larger non-virtues are like actually harming others, but then there are all the small ones for that if we just think bad or talk bad about others, all this accumulates. So all these small non-virtuous actions accumulate and become big. So the meaning of this verse 8 is that we will really make effort to abandon any kind of non-virtue.
다 고반하네 시스템 대화 짜지스러와 신 유자신은 직비치진예세야 되게 양다 돈다 가르친 거 요래세나 마타파tin 것도 와서 양 마타파tin 거 가장 이제 다 마타파진 로를 와서 얘는 뒤측되게 마타파tin 거 시스템 대화세 다 시바성 거 나나 시바성 거 나나 대화 팀부 요대바이나스 대화 팀발 플라타 머다 Then la so pata tendrik dewan kang yu depa te thamje mata pari mato taba mares sisam ke devas and penanga so mandraw chile chayana taranga la che dechi kare yona ya sama mata pares.
So the meaning of this verse 9 then, the first two lines says, the pleasures of the three realms is as fleeting as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass, vanishing in a single moment. So this again is about impermanence. We already discussed impermanence one time in the previous verse, but now this is again about impermanence. So it says that all the happiness of the three realms of samsara is any kind of happiness of the gods or of the humans, of the nagas, for example. Any kind of happiness in samsara is all impermanent. None of it is permanent.
System deva tsachi seva yin sendo ase dechi kang yu pa pe na ngarang su madra wala cha yana malachi tarachi zupo thambo yu depa tenen chowa lomkyu ki chachin chenbo yu depa tenen soso la che top kosa rewa jono lomkyu pe na chin hinja ta chopo chomo mangpo dan dona rang la japchu sini mangpo rewa dona ngarang la tara dechi mangpo yu depa te da thamje la bo dechi thamje la bo da zopo ki de thang yinare koryo gen ta chedo gen nga ge dechi ki chachin changma ko changma la bo te changma ne kap chamri ma to te mata pares pe yan do pe de zaji serpa na ye zaji serpa se ya te la shoka ngao nga so zan na ngo na lo la ngo sen ha ko yo ngo na lo la shoka te chuk sirwa yo wa chuk sirpa chuk sirpa ti sirpa na ye res ti sirpa de go ma ni ma khadi ko mi pa chi kam ro ro was ki chi chi lo ko mi pa chan ro ro was ngara zu tara yu de pa tene de chi da tham ju ki chi chi la tene mata pa re yes in ju chi res pe ti na ye res go da chang ma mata pa res.
So the verse is here saying that any kind of happiness that we experience in the three realms of samsara is all like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. So this is the example for any kind of happiness in the human realm. For example, the wealth, whatever enjoyments and wealth and good health we have, any kind of happiness, like a fame, or we have many friends or supporters, any kind of pleasure and happiness that we have is all just temporary and impermanent. It's any health and wealth and good circumstances we have are all temporary and impermanent, fleeting. So it's just the example that's given here is like when you go out in the morning and see on the grass, on all the plants and vegetables, there's some dewdrops in the early morning, drops of water. But as soon as the sun comes out, the sunshine will make these dewdrops vanish instantly. In one moment, they will be just gone. So this is the example for the happiness that we have. Any kind of happiness that we experience in this human life is all has the nature of change. It's always changing and it's impermanent.
Pena zaji sirpa na gi rin do dam do nga su ta san do as pena ma pe wan cha chim bo chi ja ka pum bo chim cham cha mi pa chan do ma sa cham cha ko sa hyo cham cha khon chung khan na chi lu ni de yo ni go do as nga chi do as pe ti na ye pena chung ba chim bo do so cham cha je chim bo cha cham cha chung mi pa cha pang go cha ro wa de cham cha cho do lo mo lo chung chung do so ki chi len cham cha 나차 미는 나차 같은 포 내바차 참자 정론이 되는 도와시 내가 만번 통도 하시 리거도 하시 다제 나랑은 랑은 때는 제 강라 간삼제 저도글로 되어 요되는 인기 때는 아주 맞다고 만번 통도 하시 이나 양알라 대다 용 무시바 말이 용 시바레스 Karsa ko nga ti kowa ten jikpi chisin mata panan de nalai te taw yong sipares. Karesa mata pares. Te ha ko res ha kone karchi. Oh, ta nga hincha pangnes. Hincha pangne tin jok den lebu doas. Nami amunje tarpu kompang cho se te doas. Nai amunje tarpu kompang cho don't nerva jase lanis. Ta neka ngarangi dechin da thamchi mata pare do konjuru rangi do jurun di donga chimbo doas. Donga chimbo yungo doas. Zupo devo yona madeva chana donga doas. Kosa chimbo yu kosa yona donga doas. Jonor chimbo yu jonor de mipa cha yungo yona donga doas. Tambo te ta mayong huni semtran doas nga tende yungri san semtran doas nga so. Dona ko dongari doas kare sina ko mata pa tende de tini tende ji yungri san te mayong bong huni dongari yong hona yonga ina ya tewe dongari was kare se chaman yondu go yor was yungu yor was te ta manjur wa juni dewa ne jorwa mi ba ji ta yor resin te yor res ta nami ammen je tarpo kompang cho.
So is this happiness that is our happiness really like a dewdrop on a blade of grass? This we can check for ourselves. We can actually see it. Like some people who have great power, like ministers, can lose all their power suddenly. They can even be put to prison and lose everything. So we can see that this happens, and we can see, for example, some business people are doing very well, very rich, and then suddenly their business crashes or they become poor, they lose everything. And some young people are young and healthy, and then all of a sudden they can get sick and even die. So we can actually see that all this happens. And then even if we ourselves are well and healthy, we can see that this happens to others. And then we should realize that this can just as well happen to ourselves. Because as long as we are in samsara, we are also a changing phenomena. We are within this changing samsara. So here everything is impermanent. And this is something that we must realize. We must recognize that this is the fact. And then what should we do? And then we should abandon the clinging attachment. So that's why it says that striving for the supreme state of never changing liberation is the Bodhisattva's practice. So we have to realize that all our happiness is temporary and changing, and therefore it is suffering, right? It is suffering that when we are well and then we become unwell, this is suffering. If we have a good position at the job, a powerful position, and we lose it, this is suffering. If we have wealth and we lose it, it's suffering. So, and there's always these worries of losing what we have. And since everything, we can see that it happens, that everything changes, so it's impermanent. And then we ask, is there then a happiness that is not impermanent and changing? Yes, there is, because it says here that there's the supreme state of never changing liberation.
China leka timpo ci tsargori das gido China leka timpo ci tsargoris leka timpo tsam du ko tin del tambo ni timpo mi sa de timpo ji kawan tsargorwa ri changma tsargo go re de tin tsam du ji tambo timpo ci da yo mares tin te nga ha go go res timpo mi sa timpo ji nge ra ga marwas ta timpo tsargo na ngene ne timpo tsargo na ta And
And so, for example, if we think about our own situation, like our own job, and then there is always some worry that we might lose this job. And even if we have a small business or whatever we have, there is a worry of losing it. So we always say that we should get a stable job, stable position. We say that, we talk like that we need to get a stable job. But it's actually not possible, because from the beginning, the basis is never stable. So we cannot actually get a really stable job, although we talk like this. So if we really need to get a stable, then we need to practice the Dharma. We need to put the Mahayana Dharma into practice.
다 나야 먼저 탈파 공판쳐서 탈파 톱송이 나시거다. 탈파 톱나 탈파들 만보 고려요래 빼는 이 속에 탈네 람보 공판들 탈파라고 요래. 되네 야 나라서 따라 니랑게 되네 코란 속이지 양 코로 동하는 지기자네 되네 코란 속 되네 쉽디 쇼와도 되어 단도르는 코란 속 니랑게 공판 톱네 되네 니랑게 될라 코란 속 탈파 문진게 요래스 대답 탈파 니랑게 탈파야 저 문진게 요래스 얘네야 나야 먼저 탈파 공판 초세인데 두주 탈파 되고 말 탈파 침보 특파 침보 탈파 타토 산제지 공판 톱받은 될 거고래스.
So when it says the never changing liberation, the state of never changing liberation, then this can be understood like liberation is understood in different ways. For example, getting liberated from the lower realms is a kind of liberation. And also, if you think from the perspective of the Shravakas and the Pradika Buddhas, then their level of liberation is also considered liberation. They are free from samsara. But what we talk about, what is meant here when we say the supreme state of never changing liberation, here it refers to the great liberation of supreme Buddhahood of the Mahayana.
Teni tapa chibu kompandu kandeji togorse na teni tikpa chimbo ke lamla sho tikpa chimbo ke teni simchi tamje ke dondo teni kowa da donha tabla teni rangi mbezor se ne teni dondo nyerwa sendowa tapa kompan cho ke dondo nyer ne dondo nyer kare nyer gore tambo sanchon cho de simchi ne teni nga ke so sa dripa jang rowa dor de na teni tikpa chimbo nyamne parsin chorum pa in the nyams line then pa in the tin ro res te ta tin ro ne tin nam chi nga ke ta jimba par de sin sutum je par de sin dona par de sin pa chuka par sin ne tin top za kan de tikpa chimbo konfa tapa de top yo res te ta tin top song ayena tin ti dewa tin jura me pa dewa chimbo dewa len jura me pa ponjol mi ke dewa as Tetopoeres. Teta don't hear what the Jesse Sancho Simbanam Jelani. Namjung Aran Sotara, not Depo Chago, Tipo Chagos and Rang, don't near Guravas. Don't the Yen, the Shoka Yalan, and Gonda, my Marago the Jukuta. She be joke better Chigurite. Yena cook Dungan and Usma. Donghal better said Delamato, Donghal Tabin bet to be on my ass. Chidin song the Kawana Zona team. Dewan do jet tomo pace here. Dewan do jet tomo pace. Mari Donghal do Samuel Donghani and Uber Jose cheer. Dewan do chance. Dewan do Kuyurite Yenaya. Shirap the meat at the Tenitomo in Pachani. Tenit Dewa Gijot the mother, which Donghag Jot the drum, the Dongan and Uspan on the SH. Then I'm young answer Deva, she didn't be so secure that Deva Marabache, Donghag Jochan. That Donha tell it any Targona, Teni, Bezor Senate, and it watching Belam to us.
So how should we then reach this state of the great liberation, this supreme state of never-changing liberation, is by practicing the Mahayana Dharma. So we should strive for that by striving in the Mahayana practice. And so this is first of all to give rise to bodhicitta, generate bodhicitta, and then to purify our negativities and gather the accumulations of merit and practice the 6 paramitas, gradually practice the 6 paramitas. So then, so we follow the path of the Mahayana and practice generosity, discipline, all the 6 paramitas gradually, and then this will lead to the result of the Mahayana, which is this unchanging great bliss, like undeceiving, unchanging great bliss, great happiness. That is the result of the Mahayana. So this is what the Bodhisattvas should strive for, strive to put this path into practice to attain this result. Normally, when we strive in our daily life, from the morning we get up, we strive for happiness, but it is for our own happiness. We are not able to strive for the actual happiness, final happiness. So although, like it's said, that although we want happiness, we don't have enough wisdom, so we have too much ignorance, so we accomplish the causes of suffering, although we want to accomplish the causes of happiness. So we're not able to strive for the actual happiness. But what we must do to achieve this goal of the result of the Mahayana is to strive on the Mahayana path and put it into practice. This is what we must do.
Chupade Tomit Dala Mana Donarandi, Jikis, the San Tyasim Justice and Josim Jasela, yes, on was.
So then verse 10 says that when mothers who have been kind to us since beginningless time are suffering, what is the use of one's own happiness? Therefore, generating the mind of enlightenment in order to liberate limitless sentient beings is the Bodhisattva's practice.
Tommy Tinis, Toma Mipani, Yota, Toma Mipani, Dala Seva Jeans, that Mana Donarandi, Jikisa, Sondua, that take Karisungu Yoresenas, Toma Mipani Rama Mayoras. Toma Mipani Tata Parikata, Ranga Mayore, then the simply Tamti Mamas, the Chicken me, say a Jimsi, Titan Lemures. Tara Toma me, say the Karisenas. Thomas said, Kadungan go to Paris, say a derivata. Ma Kadun go to Paris, say. Then the Cho Kadun go to you, meet tell Toma Yomaris, call Toma Yomaris. De Toma Yomaris, you need series, Sanjekson. Toma means. Toma me but the Sanjik Mashipa river, Manchimba, any Koranke, Mashi did any maze on Tendris on Yomaris. Me by the Toma the Kadun go to this. Me Paris, Penang around Tara, Jala no Chi, Jala the Kadu, Julo Chiton Gubja, Gubju Kolgul on the tomb. Yaman Lon Dinitum, say, Yaman Jarap no Jacob Jarap the old Julo Turap, Tiningo Roa. Oh, Tate the Chomari say, to say Zoya, the share yours. Carrigan, yours, did he hear yours? Me Pachilla didn't go to the here your mares. Then me by in some Toma Mays. Hatjan Tinitar watch had the rose. The ending a tyranny to have an cordiata. Long tat don't soon mangle around corsata, says Zomi Pala. The end to Tinitir all my was, Mark some Jones, Jenny, Tinima, some of the some Jones say yes.
And so it says that this from beginningless time. What does it mean that it's from beginningless time? It means that all sentient beings have been our mothers because it has been happening since beginningless time. So there has been time for all sentient beings to have been our mothers. So this is the reason why it says here that it's since beginningless time. So if we ask then, when did I begin to exist? When did my existence begin? Then there is no beginning because samsara has no beginning. And who taught this? It's the Buddha who taught this, who said that there's no beginning. So how does the Buddha know that? Is it because he doesn't know the beginning that he said there's no beginning? No, that is not the case, because if we have something that has been produced at some point, maybe in the 18th, in the past century, in 1,900 years, or if some centuries ago, if something was produced at that time, we can trace the history that it was produced at that time, so we can find out, we can specify when it began. But this is not possible with samsara, since we cannot trace the history. It is the case that the samsara is beginningless. So because samsara is beginningless, then we cannot specify when our chain of lifetimes began. So we have been living for countless lives, millions of lives we have been living, and each time we were living, we had a mother. So we can see that all sentient beings have been our mothers for this reason.
When I'm going to call Tama mi say that being the young and can't be young children. Now, can't get in dinner in town dinner the second says Zoyam does. Courage and what is on my Hebrew West and Tender Maris, Mary's color. Dirty say, says Zoyam Mary's. Call Toma me say a gypsy, bit dinner there is.
So, for example, when we say that samsara has no beginning and no end, then we can give the example of space to illustrate this. It's the same with the space, that we cannot point out the center or the limits of space. So that's not because we cannot point it out, but because it doesn't exist. Space has no center or no limit, so we cannot point it out. It's the same with the beginning and end of samsara. Because there is no beginning and end, we cannot specify it or point it out.
Tan dona Simchi Tamje Rangi Mama de Chicha Miss Tara Gumpolo song your pena Dona Sachimbondas, Sachimbo, Deni Robert Chung Chung Dine, the Robert Chung Chung Dine Zito Gamne. Now here Sachimbo the same, Robert Zito Possigiris. My Jashik Robert Janja side long you say here. There our Robert in the side the same, Zito Tepsi series. Yena Mark Jumbo to say two Marsito and Zito Jana say two Maris. Robert Janja side long manjurus on the Data Robert Chung Chung in the side say, see Jang, I know my Janga still Telejan, Mang Jan, still Tepsi Marsak and Dango Marisia.
So in summary, there's no sentient being that has not been our parent or mother in a previous life. It's like Nagarjuna said, there's a quote by Nagarjuna where he said that even if you were to take all the soil in the whole earth and make it into small pills, then the amount of earth would not be enough to count as many times as sentient beings have been our mothers. So you would not have enough soil to make so many pills that it could count the amount of times that sentient beings have been our mothers.
Data Maji de Samse de Katse and Mark Samse, that's also la Pechayana, Choria, Ma Samse Chimbochi. Benaya Kahil Paman Zewahida Pats Pupu Zeamit use Sibari does. Jachan and Reni use Sibares. Yena Mayo Hitekita, Putelitini, Rank Solicha, Chipan Ziduas. Ben my inti, Tana Tundroinja. Tundroji in a cross pool, but solid Chipar Janguas. Jipin that the doctor Chiki tart, Zik and Jankola Supervas. Yina cross pool, massive cross solid down some Jones, they were so Jokudas. They have told dinner Mate pool around the Hatjangitini, Zewa Chimbo, then some John Sigures. Then it ending Market Jivan Dirtan, Jivan Muma Tamjelatin around the part of market in the day of some John Sene, Tata Pama some John Kan, Jepana is in it, then Nara some John Sene, then young you're cutting Chimbo in Bajim's Teniris. Naranzo Simchi Tamje Marishipa, Market change in Bas, yet it was.
So then if we think about how much love did each mother show us, like how much did our present mother show us love, how much love did our present mother show us, then there might be some mothers who were not so loving, like maybe among 100 mothers, there might be a few who were not so loving. But in general, it is the case that mothers love their children more than their own body. They take care of the children more cherish the children more than their own body. And this is even the case for animals. We can see even the most dangerous animals like tigers and leopards, they care for their children very much more than their own. They protect them more than their own body. So in this way, we can understand that the mother is really very loving and caring. And just like our own mother has been so loving and caring, then each sentient being have been so kind to us in the past life. Every sentient being have been a kind and loving mother. So first, it is said that first we should understand that every sentient being has been our mother, and then we should think about the kindness that they have shown us when they were our mother.
토마 메반데니 마 탐지게 대 따바 다다 말거든가 제외 짱용부터니 진치 마도 시거래 진치인데서더니 동아 용구요나 라니 데포 치포 차드니 진치인체요 말이스다 마나도나 란디 치시사 시도 나 데포 차드니 진치만도 아시 치시스 로와 데엔두 타에 답변나 시거 답변이 야나 시에는 좋으시 변나 나랑게 따라 잡아 마데 동아시 위진양도 요나스 팔로네 동아냥도구나 변나 사양 통양도 미네 무이게 지도가 나네 베 시위지 동아난도 요나스 나랑 철로더니 베 특로 땅네 베 시위지 직보 세대 바이나 그때 김치 가야면 도와시 다 팔로드네 마데 네파차네 나차데 슈위 나 사야미 로파치니 따종민 스니미나 나랑 콜 나랑 쪼포 쪼모 망포 빨리 집어 땅내나 짐치면도 왔어 나랑게 파다 마제 파마도서 빼 뭐임바가 나주시 되네 빼 강이시 자동시 빼 슈위치 강이 텐도 요나 뺑아란 롱칸 까망아 진데 데네 슈위 지포 땅데 짐시 가야면도 아스 또 빼야 랑게 파마 데이터부터 동한연도 요나 나 지포스네 데이터사를 왜 야나 소소 파마를 제와 시다미나 데 랑게 제와 치히시 랑게 제와 치히 랑게 잡다 랑게 푸 야나 랑게 족보 조모 하짱게 제와 첨부 뭐 던제지게 다 강이 동한용도 요나 랑이 철로 지포 신독 투사를 왜 가시 데나 야무나 뭐디 쿠바리 야무나 뭐디 뉴바리와 어디 쩌다 뭐 던데스 되게 말와스 지금 배sor지 탑이 지기를 와스 데인두 다 나란소 코와나는 내대베타라 코버 심지 탐비랑 그 마마제 찍잖요 말에 송고요 락버등이 소스는 제대베 되는 야와를 제대베 여다를 제대베 심지 탐비랑 그 마세대요레스 다들 동안 빼닝고요레스 닝고요도 다가 빼 쳐도고로 멋에 따라 담조지 밀리 야포지 톱요르스 담배 추르야 밀리 야포지 톱요르 너다 제 탐지 동강야 마르베체 나랑 멋에 내가 지니 촐라땅다 비 준시미바 동미바 차고도 와시 핀토모도 와시 드르마이 바시가다 드르마 제베치네 대선 다 준시 쳔보리도스 심지 탐지 파마스리 바린도 가든진보지 샤다리도 이나야 코란스 동한도 와시 다 나랑 고갑도 와시 나랑 챗팅 고갑 가르 담조지 밀리도 코란스로 와시야 고갑도 와시 다 고갑 잠본데 되니 대선나 타예 심지 탐지 자르서 타예 심지 탐지 되는 코와도 동안에 자르스나 시걸 자르스나 되는 게 산초지 심지네 되니 심지 탐지 동주비 배설치기 세 다대 답상 딴 거래 해서 거다 자세 산초 선발라 냠내지나
So we should think about how from beginningless time there's no sentient being that has not been our parent, very kind mother. They've been so kind to us. So how could we then just enjoy and be happy ourselves when they are suffering so much? So to understand this, we can think of an example, like if our mother of this life is suffering very much, if she has nothing to eat or drink, if she's suffering from famine and hunger, and then if you would then go and have a party and enjoy yourself, then there wouldn't be any reason to do that while your mother is suffering like that. Or if you think if your present mother would be very, very sick, and if she doesn't have medicine and no one to help her, then if you would go and have party with your friends at the same time, then this would be meaningless. There would be no reason to do that. Or think of your present parents, if they are facing a lot of difficulties, that others are giving them problems, giving them a hard time, and then if you go and stay and enjoy yourself in a 5-star hotel, then how could you do that? There would be no meaning, no reason to do that. So if we think of the examples like this, then we can gain an understanding that how could I myself stay happy and not help all those sentient beings who have been my parents before. And if it doesn't make so much sense to you to think of the mother, then you can think of whoever has been very loving to you, whoever you feel a loving relation with, like your children or spouse or friends that you really love. Then think, if they were suffering, then how could you stay happy, enjoy yourself at the same time? So if somebody acts like that, then the person is either stupid or crazy, like you would not do that. So in this way, you should then think of all sentient beings, that all of them have been your kind to you in the past, and now even those who are now in the hell realms or hungry ghosts or animals, they are suffering a lot. And you have now gained this precious human life, which is an opportunity to help them. So if you wouldn't use this precious human life to help them, you would be wasting it. And so there would be no meaning to your precious human life then. So we should not waste this human life like this, but we should think of how all sentient beings have been so kind to us, and they are now suffering. So I will use this precious good opportunity that I have to, as it says in the verse, in order to liberate those limitless sentient beings. Then you generate bodhicitta and make an effort to help them. So this is how a bodhisattva should practice.
다 말하는 테니 파마 심지 탐지기 치드 드네 랑게페 대다 탐지기 돈르고 상하게 따라 드네 담배추라 드네 투바 삼바 공바 닌틴 드시네 드네 베조르시네 드네 냠네세 바이나 다 데이터 드네 시네 돈도 녀세야 데이터 돈도 녀 가래 돈도 녀 담배추라 돈도 녀 특바 침벌로 돈도 녀 드네 데이터 드네 베조르시네 드네 냠닌치네 드네 지야테 드네 자세 산초 스바 남치 라네리스 짐치 가리드네 요도 짐치데 심지 탐지 동나 나도 나랑게 파마 맞에 비직점도 빼나가 지디시가 남케 가르쳐 심진지 찹 심지 가르쳐 레다 뇨모 비찹 레다 뇨모 비 가차 바이나 동하기 찹 동하기 찹데 심지 탐지랑 파마 맞에 밤도 와스 오다 대 탐지를 드니게 나랑게 드니 베조스네 드니 코란서 동하래 조고 삼바 삼노 대단에 드니 가게 탐비출에 니디시네 드니 베조스나 드니 제스 산수신 나네 잡고 요레스
So you should think like this, that all sentient beings have been my mothers, my parents, and I want to benefit them. So in order to benefit all these mother sentient beings, you will put the Dharma into practice. We'll study the Dharma and contemplate the Dharma and meditate on the Dharma. To put the Dharma into practice is what is meant by striving. When it says in the text, it says that you will strive for their benefit. So what does it mean? It means to strive to practice the Dharma, to practice the Mahayana, to make effort in the practice. Then this is the Bodhisattvas practice, to make effort in the Mahayana practice. And what is the reason that we should do this? Is because all these sentient beings are suffering. So it's said that as wherever the space pervades, sentient beings pervade. And wherever there's sentient being, then there's karma and mental afflictions. And wherever there's karma and mental afflictions, there's suffering. So, and all these suffering sentient beings have all been our kind parents, mothers. So that this is why we must make an effort to help them to practice the Dharma, to put the Dharma into practice. And this is the Bodhisattva's practice.
Dring better chickens and a dead and a command to us. Tatan better chick or mato. Use up in which in Tati Serpana, those tags, Servana, in Akamutin, they attack Serpana, is yours. The hand in better seen do. Then rangi Jula, you de Bagatara. Najar say at Dua, Chado say at Dua. Shedan say at Dua. Betos that is only but angle, Beto Karim Beto Sigur. Betos in Naranzuta, slow and on a cheek, Zoras in a cheek, Lekatavana, he's in the Tare Omares. Betos the Narning, same Juratanguta, same Juratan. Oh, Shedan of Jesoma in a tetes chepa, me parzo to and Betos. Chadon of Jesoma in, tepa me parcel and Betos. Joa Chixena, Na Shedanche and Jimsi Yusi, Krangal to Pocheri. Joa Chixena, Chadoche and Jimsi Yusi, them Marap Chesons, or this Naranki Coca Mambo land to us, Shono to us. Oh, this what you cigarette was Shedanche and Chados and Jimsi Yusi is. In a Jimsi to Jimsi and that is in Jimsi and that Maris. That's some new Naranzo Reva to pass it to a redosage. Oh, redosage, Chadan Nikitin Redoni the Yungur. That's some of Kotsawa the Nomu, but the Maribak on the day and the Jimsi and Tabachabu Maris. Or then the Nagata Shedanke Yoinari, Chadoke Yoinari, Tandu Chache Yoinari, Karina, oh, that's some Danzit and Java Yurisam. Nyomo button Java Yuri, Nyomo Barisam. Tande, Mune Nanga, the Kangi Teni, Rangi some Kangi Teni, there is an. Then it did in Haggin Bets or Sine. Then it papang to Sine. Be Tet of Nyomo, but Chungi Jason in a papang to ya. But the day in Bets or Sigores.
So when you say that when we say that we will strive in the practice, then it's not enough to do this like outwardly, because our happiness, as we said, the happiness that we experience is just like dewdrop on a blade of grass. Everything is impermanent. So when we have pride, for example, or anger or jealousy, then it is inside that we have to remove it, inside our own mind. It's not something outside that we go out and change, but we have to change from inside our own mind. So we have to change the anger, the jealousy, any mental afflictions that arise. We have to make effort to remove them from our minds. Maybe there is a good reason for us to feel jealous. Maybe there is a reason for us to get angry that somebody cheating us or not doing well to us. So there might be reason, that we probably see reason for all our afflictions, but actually there is no good reason for any afflictions. Like any small hope or fear actually comes from desire and anger. So they are all afflictions, and they all must be changed. All these afflictions must be changed in the mind, because they all come from the ego grasping. And they all cause suffering. So therefore we must abandon any kind of small mental afflictions, and this is how we should make effort in the practice.
Jimsin ji yu sigira Quran su ngal chik jene tene ngan chado da hedan chig yoras ta dinge jimsin yanda mari kare jene segi yoras senas nge te jimsin yanda mari is kare jene jimsin yanda mari senas o jimsin to chol tene nga hedan chi nga chado chi o tama kare cha tama ko nga ngi som pen do was nga nyawan pen do was jimsin to chol nga hedan chen chado chen do cha che tomok che tan tama nga kawan pen do o ya tene ngangi sosono pendu o jimsi tesen tate jimsi anda mi be jimsi teres
So there's no real, so when there might be a reason, we see a good reason for getting angry or getting jealous and so on. We see a reason for our afflictions because somebody did something to us, so we see that as a good reason. But I'm saying that that is not the actual, that is not a good reason. It's not a true, a genuine reason for getting angry and so on. And why is that? It's because that if you get angry due to something that somebody did to you, or you get jealous, then or other afflictions, then this just leads yourself to be reborn in the lower realms. It draws yourself to the hell realm. So therefore there is no good reason for getting angry, because it just brings you to the lower realms.
oyata betor si de karen betor sigorsina tene panyo mobile sojin betor sin sojin ngagi ya tene range sambata ninje zewa zuba tatu so ya tes ya je tang tvel betor sigores
So how is it that we should make effort in the practice? On one hand, we should remove and reduce these mental afflictions of anger and jealousy and desire and so on. And on the other hand, we should develop, cultivate loving kindness and compassion and patience.
oyata chukjik de donga mali daden dole chonzo basanji yimpen selen de tesa dade yinde donga ta yanda jewa jase lan yeso tene tinanandros
So then comes verse 11. All suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Therefore, completely exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattvas practice.
ta donga mali daden dole jong se chi doas donga sina donga chimbo pena ni sona ne chene ni song donga ina ri tene yan thori ke la ta mana ne chene tene ko donga ina ri ta ngara su mer chene tene ngala donga khare do wa ngala donga thamje sigoda donga mali sen de donga thamje lago yore yana soso zupo ke nacha yunari oya soso le che pamjor choa ke teni kangi yunari soso nama ke kangi yunari ta dona donga sem ke teni che machi pa che akare yina lu ke teni te che joglon tan nacha ta la so pa yu de pa teni sem ke teni semchar sem machi pa yu de pa sam ko donga thamje sen tel se go donga thamje se
So here it says all suffering, and that refers to the greater sufferings of the three lower realms, and also it refers to the suffering of the three higher realms, humans and gods and demigods. So and all the suffering that we experience as a human, like whatever kind of suffering we experience when we get sick, or our economy is not doing well, or our family has problems, like any kind of suffering that we experience based on having a human body and a mind. So there's the physical suffering of sickness and so on, and the mental sufferings of worries. So all this together is this all suffering without exception, as it says.
Ta pena ngaran so che pugun ro che na lobjong ya po ma le lomde ma yo yang le ka lobda gi se ya po ma ra ba ta ngaran ke na che le ka so ya po ma ra ba chama sigyo da dong ha tham che go go ri da ta so so che zho po ya po ma thop ba yang na zho mo ya po ma thop ba ri wa do na nga ke sem re wa chi yo re wa chu ni man ru ba ri wa del do so ji dong de ba goya de matabaji magoha de lebde yanochi tunu yomodo de tamje ko donha tamje ti donha tamje kawani chungu yore senase da de wondu basna da den du lenjong ta tamje nga jiboji yongo samne esgo nga jiboji yongo samba tini dege tini ta nga yaboji yongo ro nga jiboji yongo samba tini ti tini donha mangboji chungu yore.
For example, if you have a child who needs to go to school and it cannot study well, that is suffering. Or if not passing the exams, not getting a good job, not getting what we want, like the right friends, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever we want, not getting what we want, and getting all the things that we don't want, all this is this all suffering without exception. So all the suffering that we experience, what does it come from? It comes from this wishing for one's own happiness, wishing that I myself will be happy and well. And this leads to a lot of suffering.
Tongha mali datin du le chong se de kawani yong sin jog tin che chong jo sin che wang hu ma le ge tin ngarang ta goya te ma tho che ne teni ma go ma po ji yong du do donga yong ya te jog tin che yong go ta ta ke ngo ne ya ngarang pe chi po cha go ro nga sa ne ro ba pe chi wi chi ngarang che ju thon na ne pe thong yu pa ro ba making ngarang le ya po la ya ro ba making ngarang le ta chre ya po jin ya re ba chen bo yo ro ba se ta te ta re ba o ngarang ke le do ya po dro ya re ba chi do as ti ni re ba de ma de ti do nga do as jo ke ti ni chi yong go yo ri ta ra ngarang ke sam no ta dang ke nga hi ba ti te ni chi yong go do as da den du le jong nga chi ya po chi yong go sa ti te ma yong ze de ti do nga yong go do as tan do de na pe na ma chi ke ja do a chi she wa yin na ti ni shu chi se na po go do as ma chi nam jon da ya po ma tin ba yin na ya nga ra se na ma chi ba cha go do as pe na ma chi ke ne chi ra la pe chi ke ja ngin pa do chen chi shu chi se na po go do as ka re chi ne nga shu ji ya po cha go sam ti ni ma yin be chung ta an ti ni nga ya po cha ya da pa chi ta yong go re sa ne ti ni ta ma chi ba cha do go as da den du len jong se ti ni jum si ma po ji ha ko tu do as
So this all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. Is saying that there's a cause for this suffering. So the cause for the suffering that we experienced in the past life and in this life also, all this suffering comes from that we want our own happiness. We want things to go well for us. So when we want people to speak nicely about us, and we want people to see us, perceive us in a good way, and we want to accomplish our plans, accomplish our aims. So all these are hopes. We have so many hopes for doing well ourselves, that we want this and that to go well. So all these hopes and wishes for it to go well for us leads to suffering. So just if somebody says something that hurts us, immediately we suffer, if somebody says something not nice to us, or if somebody shows a not so nice expression on the face to us, say just something small, then it can hurt us a lot. And why is that? It's because we want ourselves to be happy. We want our own happiness, and this leads to our own unhappiness. So it says that all the suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So we can see that this wishing for our own happiness leads to many kinds of suffering.
다 니빠 조버 산지 인핀 셈는 총수도 왔어. 동아말에 다된 도는 종 조버 산지 인핀 셈는 총수인데 다 내가 그 대화지 여러 내가 그 대화 배나 소소그 종지바 소소는 전월론 뷰유바 소소는 신hin자유바 소소 내가 그 대화 배 사와 라는로 배 참마 가만히 중국 열으세나 인핀세 대바 되는 중국 열으세 내가 타토도 되는 산지지 공판세야 돼 인핀 되는 중국 열으세 인핀 산지지 센데 중국 열으세.
So then it says that the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So all suffering arises from wishing for one's own happiness, and then the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So there are all these temporary kinds of happiness that we experience, the happiness of having looking good, or having wealth, having fame, having luck in our activities, all these temporary kinds of happiness. This all comes from wishing well for others, wishing to benefit others. And then also the ultimate happiness of Buddhahood comes from the altruistic mind of wishing for the benefit of others.
Tene peji yana singana peji yana. Tene tammaji pe sawala yapo lanandro pe tene sinhinda chimbo cha. Tate karin yungo yorisenas te tabete. Jimchin dos Jimchin jigbe jiwang hum leg tene yimpin se de te leg tene sawa lanandro pen lobyon yapo chaya. Oh, jutola pe nipa doya, jutola pen da chimbo yoya, then the young doas, yinda manda. Then it kapto te and sosu organ, then it sambat ninja, young doas. Then it mamampo gao chaya, pen a kashi the topo tomo mambo doas. Pe manjeva mambo doas, Magani and Japus in your mambo yoga doas. Check the leg in the younger. Yen a tata mokanias, Sawazambo Skioros, Sampat Ninja. Tini, Dordina, sin dug detia, sin dug detia, the Nico, Jimpinsia, Samba Ninja. Titani, Neka with the sin dechi Nindalas. Says some market in his Hanji compound top say and there, then is somebody ninja Sancho sim did in where is. Then I didn't have quayina. Tangal deki go yona. Then Marape Chadogolo, Kipo Yapo Chago yona. That child Jud Hako does. Jud Hama also did any. Ngal goji dechi go then a drip to the Donghag judge of sudden drip to the Latini, Donghams and Drugumadas. Then the Tinit so Nami Hakon, that Yimpi, Zopus and the Yimpins and Chonse, then it teeth and the Nagi Yimping Logi and the Nag give a Drubayina. Somebody hinges Sancho, the same gin give a Drubayina. Sin Dota, says Sama, Nekab, the Jim Possum Sobatoyata. Tato Sanji compound top say it, some of it in the Sancho, the same thing you was. Benamana to Sanji Shakatabas Sanji Shakatabase, Ta Tambo Major was go. Major, Nepal and Much. By a lumber nails at an Antonio Jarboji, Jassage was. Oh, yeah, Ta corner yin the Manda with any Simji and Ninji, say what Chimbo was. Simji yen Zewa the Ninja Chimbo Yone, then it take any coke. Yimping the Sawa drum de yinpin ke tene sawa drum tene ngage semji tamji chi de tene ngage sawa drum du semji tamji jing gonjap kungni tamba chason was korang nega deji changman dor jarpo jasi changman dor was jo tang na jarpo jasi yena pimpa lega chachimbo drup chogor was yena ya khone ke samba de ningje de jiene tele lapches chi drum ras zabling lo ni tong ngabja ri den chin hinja simji na pinta ya da dong ya ko zabling chi ko la chi chin no do as dedi koran jase ri dedi leka ya ko le tene koran kap dedi koran jase chi de songa ina dedi leka lap chin bo chi data na dara sanji na gi cha tu go ma de dingsan goya koran yo ma yena ya lo ni tong ngabja kinjuk ni dara ko bet ko simji tamje le tene mangbol pinta ya tene korang ge zigi dan chini den zablen na chamlo ya tene yong do as ai ko yinpin den tene mai chap song as tene yinpin sancho je sen den tong ne tene sanji ji kompang top song as tene ta simjin ro ar ro de chaman pinta te tene ni ba chi chaba ro as kare tene yong go isen ti samba de ni ji tene yong go yo res tenga 좀 쓸려이나 다라 대진 친구 요데 바 탐지야 코 삼바든 인지 산주지 셈 무는 제네 드니 티드니 다한 레버 톱데 바치 던디 용고요레 다한 가랑 좀 뭐깔 삼노 따와이나 뭐 잠보리 시드디 뭐뭐 가가도스 코 마야라브리스 도스 코 야라브리스 시드디 뭐 참마나 이게 가가도스 코 힘발 가케 마제자 뭐 가가도스 아레치네 코셈 삼노 따다 콜이 yin pin some pinsim de yores titsin de deji ya kotini yong do as sam tan ha ko do as ten nga zo mo ji cha ya na nga sam du ni ji do nga ran ji ku sam du ni ji ro de ti ju le che dang pe chen bo do as cha do pe che bo do as ti ju le chira jono lo ju kare mo kare hona sem de chi hira mo do as yena pingo samduni ti ma yara samba zambo ina kwan semla ne kaptel dechi dos kwan chibo dos ti ma mambo rangi ga dos kwan gi ti ma yin de gaya kin be zo ma ze ja rewa mi ja rangi ga do chobo chomo ma bon dos sama ko ne kaptan thatu nya gi dechi se ya te yinpi sancho ji semtene yo tarto sanji kompang de ni yinpi sancho ji semtene yo go yo se ta donda teri do as
So for example, if someone is doing very well, has good luck in his activities and fame, then what does this come from? There's two reasons for this, all these good things to happen to someone. And the first is the karma from the past life, that in the past life this person did very well, maybe studied well and was able to work well and benefit the society and benefit others more than other people, like especially much benefit others. And because he has this altruistic intention to benefit others and has love and compassion, then he or she himself or herself will be more happy at that past life and also would gather many friends. Others would automatically like him or her. So this is the karma from a past life that causes from good activities in the past life causes good things to happen to one in this life. And then the second reason or cause is the good activities that you do in this life. So also when you do good deeds and have love and compassion, loving kindness and compassion in this life, then others will like you and you will be more happy in this life, and you gain fame and good luck in your activities. And in the future, this loving kindness and compassion will lead to the result of Buddhahood. Also, ultimately, will lead to the result of Buddhahood. So when we know this, then we can see that what we need to do if we want happiness is to accomplish the right causes of happiness. So when we know what is the cause of, when we don't know exactly what the cause of happiness is, we want happiness, but we might be accumulating the causes of suffering. So we need to accumulate the right causes of happiness. Like it says that the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So it's this altruistic mind, altruistic intention to benefit others. This means to practice virtue, loving kindness and compassion, and this leads to both all temporary happiness in this life and also to the ultimate happiness of Buddhahood, the stable happiness of Buddhahood. So, for example, we can think about Buddha Shakyamuni. He was first a human person, a prince from Nepal, actually. But he developed more loving kindness and compassion than anybody else. So he was able to benefit others because of this altruistic intention to benefit. So he was able to benefit all sentient beings. He became the protector for all sentient beings. Actually, when he was a prince, he was a king, he already had power to benefit a lot of sentient beings. But because he developed this extraordinary loving kindness and compassion, this altruistic intention, then he was not only able to benefit the people in his kingdom, but all sentient beings. So even now, 2,500 years after he passed away, he's still so famous and still benefiting. And this is the result of the Bodhisattvas practice to develop this altruistic intention. This leads ultimately to the result of Buddhahood. It gives the ability to really benefit all sentient beings because the real benefit comes from loving kindness and compassion, the altruistic intention. So we can see that all happiness comes from loving kindness and compassion. So when we have loving kindness and compassion, then we become a good person, and automatically then others will also like us. So without effort, it gives happiness for both ourselves and others, because others will also like us and think well of us. So all happiness is based on this altruistic intention of loving kindness and compassion. On the other hand, if somebody is just thinking of his or her own benefit and develops jealousy and so on, then there will be no happiness. So when one is focused on one's own benefit, there's no happiness. But when one focuses on the benefit of others, then all happiness comes from there effortlessly, both the temporary happiness in this life and the ultimate happiness of attaining Buddhahood all comes from the altruistic intention.
Tepsir da di yinje dongata yanda jewa jasela ni yin se te tepsir se te kare se se na rang la tene donga yo de ba tamji rangi tamji donga yo de ba tamji tene rang dewan do sna yong yo ba ta tene zopa sanje se ya te tene yin na pimpa ta sancho sem de jong yo ba jimchi te sna sigyor jimchi te sna tene rani ge tene da de yin de donga ta yanda je ba se ta ma su zena da yin jewa da yin nyamba se ya jingo ro nam ju da yin jewa se da yin je se de kare se na da ge dewa da ge de chin phusum so batam ji yin na che ya yin na donga kare yo na chur da ge rang ge sem tol se ne ya de tam de ni da yin je se ya ma su tu yong go do mo gi ge dara cham za tong lin se ya ji he ge do tong lin se ya de da yin je se ya dong da ji kwa tong se de rang ge dewa pa tang yin ji donga chul ni da yin je se da ge dewa pa te yin ji donga chul ni da yin je se ya de de ji se
So all this, so it says for this reason, Therefore, for this reason, completely exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattva's practice. So all the suffering of oneself and others, all comes from this wish for one's own happiness. All suffering comes from that, and all happiness comes from wanting to benefit others. And then here it talks about the exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others. So we know about these two practices of equalizing oneself and others, and then exchanging oneself and others. And exchanging oneself and others means to take on to oneself all the suffering of others and then give all happiness to others. So this is the same as the practice we know called Donglen, giving and taking. So this means this taking upon oneself all the suffering of others and giving all happiness to others.
Yinj dongar se te tara dewa se dongar se te simchi thamji dongar mando ba yin chikpa res simchi thamji dewa ndo ba yin chikpa res do dena dongar do deni simchi chikchen yo ma no yin de yin pen bosin sokcha je yin na yang khorang dongar do yo ma no yin achang Basin so charge in a devan to go chikpares, devan to buy in chikpa, the hamando by chikpares. That then at the Nageta, not Nageta, Sancho Semionis, Sancho Semhobionsi in the Nick Korangeta Dongati, Koranga Donga Manyo, Chingala Donganyo, Koranga Dongati, Malanoya. Not there at Koranga Patea. That the so Jawachi, some of Tane. The Ninga Sancho Sem Gomio was Benangan of the 참장하는 좀 밑바시기도 밑바시인데 따라 이인지 동화됐더니 롱게 남바시는 양우비야다 되니 랑게 되지더니 양파 땅야 던저게 생겼더니 밑바송고도 빼는 뭐지 나차 쉬지 나디요나 되니 랑게 대답을 된 나차대랑게 조부되더니 밑바송 절리야 되니 랑을 대탕요데 파트에 또 용고도 산조샘 양니시 또 지겨워다시 So you go, yes. Matsuhi, some of them, what's a drone dog in Sigil Matenda 2, my son, we was in a so jiggy, yes. Then that's hack of thing, that of hack of thing. Then around a hinge don't have chats around a lame matupja, Roa, yin a yapoyona, some something, but it goes. Yin a pinch to say. Yin a chadogolo, yin don't have the children of a lame matupja, matupja. Yin no chini machipa. Sinji yin no sing a lu is going to Namia Sinji yin no Pasawa, Chigamin, Samba. Then take out just some Tantanaya. Then Yapo and Boyer. Then Yaji Rampa in the Yajendo was. Hops calling a dying jet to wheel, my was. Then the Rampa in the Comparamba in the Puchung Tambo Lang and Rotukum the Scale, Caletambo, the Kamba Lapa Yetzo. The Nia Kale, Chang Tin, draw, by in the draw. The Nia Kale compa pot of a chime to us. Petina, Yitang answer Tara Lopa Lamjan, neck up signals, Tara Sancho Similar for Jonesy, you do Lamsam Cato, Nans Dagi Jim, Harp Jans. In a Mayan Rochi thing, oh, Yena pinch to say, Yena no Simzi, Tate Tambuts out Tamja zone, take it, Tini, Maranke, send the Yajetang. Simply Yajetan, Kale, Yajetan do. The name Yena Tara, Tampong Aranachi, Ninjete, Ninjeta, Yin Pink is something of Tara. Go home somewhere, go home some. The Nikale, Kale Laling Musichi, the Nitas Laling talk to Pacha. Oh, yeah, the Nikale, Kaleta, Dayin Yambas, oh, that Devandupana, Yen Devanduku, Urin, Dandare is some. Reva, Kepsang and Danda Northia. Reva, oh yeah, that don't have Munduba Simji, don't have to go your Marisam. The name Nagangaranga don't have no sick Naranga Sunjupsi, Tina is here, Nagi Casset to Nagi Chovia. Oh, Tenit and Jetini, Kale, Kale Dagina. Teni, Dagina Bag, Loche, Tanatanga, Sancho, and Kana can't say I didn't know the Yorua. 야고차도 되네 뒤때는 되네 다인 제와서야 되네 소용 거요레스 되네 지터바 차용 거요레스 되네 대다 되네 다인 제터바들 좀다 산초 셈세야 된 총. 되네 산초 셈세야 된 알을 제 뒤때는 되네 나라야 산지지 고마 톱세야 뒤때는 톱인 것도 왔어.
So this suffering that we talk about, others' suffering that we want to exchange with, is we can see that in general all sentient beings are the same in not wanting this suffering and wanting to be happy. In this way, all sentient beings are completely the same. Even the smallest kinds of animals all want to be happy and don't want to suffer. So in this way, all sentient beings are the same. So if we practice the bodhicitta, then if we do the bodhicitta practice, bodhicitta meditation, then we should think that we want to take away other suffering and give them happiness. So there's also sometimes this visualization for the practice of Dorzin with the breath, so that we visualize that we are breathing in all the sufferings of others, and then we breathe out the happiness to give to them. For example, if someone is sick, then we can imagine that we are breathing in the sickness from that person, and then breathing out health, good health and happiness to give to that. So this is a Bodhisattva practice, to practice like this, to give one's own happiness and take the suffering. So we might think that this is like a story, it's not possible, but we can practice to do like that. So gradually we can learn to think like that. At least we should think like this, that we want to benefit, and if we cannot benefit, at least we don't want to harm anyone. So we make this determination not to harm anyone, at least, and then gradually we can improve the practice gradually, so we will be able to exchange one's own happiness for other suffering. We cannot do it just immediately. We have to go gradually, slowly, like a child who has to learn to walk. First, slowly the child sits up, and then will hold on to the wall to stand up, and then slowly the child can learn to walk. So in the same way we study Buddhism, then we cannot first of all exchange self and others, but first we make this promise to not harm anyone, but to benefit others, and then slowly we improve and practice loving kindness and compassion. First compassion is the motivation, and then we can slowly put it into practice the compassion. So first we should get an understanding of this equality, equalizing self and others, that all are actually of the same nature, that everyone wants happiness and nobody wants to suffer. So then when we understand that everyone are equal, are the same in this way, then we will try to protect others from suffering, just like we want to protect ourselves from suffering. So first, when we learn to equalize self and others, then we can slowly improve and learn to exchange self and others, the happiness and suffering. So first we need to give rise to bodhicitta, to wish to benefit, and then slowly we practice this, and based on this bodhicitta, it will finally lead to the result of Buddhahood.
Oh yeah, that tinjo de sadan do chiwang dagen no tamchin chogam chodun juna yang ludan ju tsung gewana telango jasela nis ta sancho sem seya tel hachang tin lapchim bo jachim bo imba hako do as ngaranzo mog zu matba ngaranzo samonan khor matba dendug lapchim bo yorwas ngaranzo ti 탑chim bo 탑람 자침보 산초 셈세야 탑람 자침보 여러 랍침보 여러 와스 다 랍침보 간데 요리다 늦어 요리 서단도 바침보 왕게드네 다그 저널 좀 탐친 초송나 야나 yin 초지 송나스 다 될라 Teni no se mazeva chena. Teni tela tadon ko pe ya pore kaden chimbore san til jil pachama ngwasi chama koran thobya chi gore is.
And then verse 12 says, even if others, influenced by great desire, steal all one's wealth or have it stolen, dedicating to them one's body, possessions, and virtues accumulated in the 3 times is the Bodhisattva's practice. So from this verse we can learn how great bodhicitta really is, how powerful, how vast and powerful bodhicitta is, like unimaginably vast and powerful is the path of practicing bodhicitta, that even if somebody were to steal our own wealth or make others steal it from us, then still we would not want to harm that person, but we would dedicate all these things that he has taken to him. So this is how great bodhicitta is.
Soda nduchi wang soda se sina la urita. Bopom masina se nducha wanges nducha tan nducha sela tin nducha ke jablo to mong ajan thadu chapsang ko rewa yorwas yenan nducha ke wanges nducha wang ke ni rang ngang yu de jono lomju rowa jono lomju pe khare yu de bayana jo no lomju gang yu ba thamje si ta khorang do cha che ngo jono lomju khong do cha che rowas do cha che ne tane khorang ke thabi se ne ngang go ko tang nan da zin po se ne tho song yin nan da me yin ba thabi se ne du ko se ne me yin ba yu ne tho song yin nan da rowa da ge no thamje tho gam se chama tho sun ta na khang ba mo da roa jono sama chobata tenin chojiba chodun yukse ya de yenan chojiba de ta je yongwa yinas teni ta categories de ta je yongwa yina ta categories ta.
So this verse starts with, even if others, and this others refers to anyone, male or female, anyone. And if this person gets influenced by great desire is a mental affliction related to the other mental afflictions. Desire and anger, ignorance, jealousy, pride are all related to that. But if overpowered or influenced by this desire, then this person take any wealth that we have. So take all one's wealth is everything we have, our house, our car, our money, anything we have. If this person takes it with force or cheats us and causes others to take it from us, somehow take it away from us, then so that this person has taken everything then that we have, then what should we do?
Tangarang son jiktin pando ji na ta pe masil ngal dupo cher wasku pe masil dupo cheris ta kol karegor singa chen de yin ta ma ja ko was ma ja de ramdan ro de masu jonto kongan pe ni pi se ros tangarang se de pe masaya tanjers mase tanjers ta de ramdan ro sen de chigi yor was de 다 다른 칸자이나 자카군 춤을또 로와 자카군 춤을또 다 kop종하나 야야 들어갔을 때 탑이 매설 지기로 와서 내가 저 땅기다 던지려 와서 다 산초 선반냠네시아이나 근데 지야요 말이스 코랑 뇨모 보방게 뭐 저는 초송하리로 다 가래 고르세나 다 말게 르 롬주 르스는 막 죽본데야 르 롬주 저는 가만히 봐 르다 롬주 냐 코랑 야보이냐 지 뭐이 고르세요 드니 코랑 파 뭐 코랑 야보 차나 르와 코 단어 저 침보야 차나 르와 뭐 저는데 코 야보 요나 핀토나 삼네 든드시 고르시다 당 아주 닉팅 발 때는 딱고 명발이 삼으로 왔어. 당 아주 탄탕 요말로 고 탄탕 요말로 고 레발 쭉 요리라고 그랬다. 아주 근데 삼은 그거 리삼으로 뭐 이인바가 때 리삼으로 왔어. 정말 문투지 그랬어. 얘나 산초 선배 때문에 도지가 말이야. 대약보리스다. 너네 다 대에 참아 나 고갑장부터 왔어. 뭐 저노데 너네 다 약보 차리스다. 핀토로 관 핀토서 말았어. 되는 거 텔파 모아서 지시랑스. 그때 지기요레스 텔라 모아 자세라니스. 야다 지디선도 야 텔라 모아 자세라니스. 두숨 지기와 남도 두숨 기와나 다다 찍고 많이 방에 호마사일 수남 그 개버 자와탄 다다사 임바다 마음부 개버 자와탄 제 양에 코라는 모인스 코야 고차야지 다 산초 셈냠네 시는 되니 대답은 냠네 시고로 와스 다 다기 제세야 대ten데 연구도 왔다 다 핀센도 산초 셈도 소 첨보면은 되니 연구만도 와스 나서 다인 제스 따라 미과 중요한다고 다 드니도 지게 요로스 동엄마 라리 되는 거보다 동엄마 라리 왜나가 지기도 나랑 또 똑같이 뭐냐면 진이로 나랑 상관 똑같이 뭐냐면 지게 요로스 테스치 로아 테스치 먹이치 노세세 원은 아주 투고 만도 안 맞지 승리 라비와는 아주 투고 만도 아 드니 다인 제세와 소용 것만도 왔어 상주세 나랑 똑같이 뭐냐면 신데 드니 테 주투고도 왔어 배나가 저놈 좀 초고 만도 왔다는 거잖아 대상아랑 레카를 좀 장그도 뭐 레카들 코랑 현도서 코랑 링도 사리 삼네 되는 가람 배휴지 안다지 로와 들리들 배휴지 배sor지네 되니 이엔들 파 니바 미바서야 배서 망부 지게도 왔어 아주 특별히 뭐냐면 신이나 들리서 지고 오면도 왔어 나랑은 고갑린도 왔어 이엔을 약고 차야 이엔을 약고 핀다야 근데 되니 나 삼는 때는 생고 때는 공long 때는 좀 여랑이 빠져 땅 거로 와서 특별히 뭐냐면 근데 만져 와지 거로 왔어 대답더니 다 냐면신 라니 또 투바 지고래 다 대답에 제바이나 되는데 다 자세 사조 선반남시 라니 스텔랑 와 자세 라니 인증하는 우세세 용한테 되는 가랑 텔 지스 파이랑 지 페야 보리 카딘 체송 지랑알 핀타송 삼바테 되는 대답 삼 땅투바이나 되는 자세 사조 선반남시 되는 라니 스텔랑 와 자세 라니
So if we see that if somebody take all our things like this, and if we see it from a worldly perspective, then this person has done us really bad. So then what do? We normally, in the worldly way, we would get into fight with that person. And in the past it would be warfare and fights, and nowadays it would be going to a lawyer and like really bring it to a law case and maybe send that person to prison and so on if he has stolen all our things. So this is what we would do in a worldly context, but this is not what a bodhisattva should do. Because the bodhisattva understands that this person did this based on his mental afflictions. It was due to the mental afflictions. So even we should even dedicate our own body, it says, to this other person, not just the wealth, but everything, our body and possessions and wealth. We should all dedicate this to the other person and wish that it will go well for him or her, wish that he or she would be even more rich, even more wealthy, and that it will benefit him or her. So doing this, if from a worldly perspective, other people would think that we are crazy. There's something wrong with our brain if we do like that. Really strange, and so they would not agree with this kind of behavior, but the Bodhisattvas would agree, because Bodhisattvas agree to benefit others. So we wish that it will benefit this person who stole all our things, and we rejoice that he has now gotten these things. And then it says that not only our body and possession, but the virtues that we have accumulated in the 3 times, we should all dedicate for him. So this is what it means to practice the Bodhisattva's practice, to dedicate everything for others. And this is the exchange of the happiness, one's own happiness for others' suffering. So this is not possible to practice without this altruistic intention, the wish to benefit others. And so we should not just visualize that we are doing this, but here we actually put it into practice. We are actually doing it, and this is the practice of the Mahayana, the great Mahayana practice. So so normally nowadays we can see that we cannot even stand the smallest kind of harm. If something doesn't go well for us, we can't stand it. But what this practice is teaching us, the Bodhisattva's practice, is to develop bodhicitta and then exchange the suffering, our own suffering, for others' happiness. So we should just wish that it goes even better for that other person. That is to practice the Mahayana. So we must have this motivation to change our mind and to be different, to practice in a better way, to really change and become different. So we must make this have this motivation to really put the Bodhisattva practice into practice and rejoice in others' happiness, and dedicate whatever good happens to others, we dedicate to them, we give to them, and rejoice in their happiness.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, so time for question and answers.
Okay, the first question is, in one Buddhist commentary, I read that even great teacher Nagarjuna was the Bodhisattva of the first Bhumi. So if it is true, then can we say for sure that nowadays there are Bodhisattvas of the first Bhumi in the present world?
Den tychik nangla login di nangla ludrup di satangbol la nebe changchup semba chikre ani tengsang yang dinde satangbol la nebe changchup semba yorebe tengsang sambuling la ludrup nangshi
yu sigir was nga so chi de sanje ke songri ganza ge chu ganza ge mizing sanje kin chimpa ta we yona tini ha ko ma to nga cho ganza si na ganza nga so nyo mo ba tini yu de pa ganza ge tini yin semking yin ge tini yung tin ma cho ha ko tu yo ma ba den de nge ndo ta we yu re sen nge chiran so lap tu ma re yin na ting ting yu je re sam do sa 산조 심바남지 되니 특기 모남 프랑스 되니 심지 동어치는 연구요래 연구요대 때 띵띵 요래스
So this is possible that there might be first Bhumi Bodhisattvas nowadays, but it's said that a human person can only identify another human person. Only Buddhas can identify other Buddhas, or Bodhisattvas can only identify other Bodhisattvas, because we sentient beings have too many mental afflictions to see who is a Bodhisattva. But I think for sure there are these kind of Bodhisattvas nowadays, because they made because of these Bodhisattvas' great compassion, they made aspiration prayers to benefit all sentient beings. So I think for sure there are nowadays.
So the second question is Rinpoche mentioned about the practice of Tonglen. So if the person does not have good health, can this person still like practice Tonglen? Because this person may not have good health to give to others.
ngara zupo data men toni chi tbire se te rewa o te nge ta han la ya je so ari te pe toni chimbo se te kharisina pen so so lu le na cha yo na as so so lu le na cha yo ka ngi yo na o ta nga ke na cha ka ngi de simji tamje ke na cha ka ngi de ngala te ni nga ke na de ba te ti khoran so ke ya yin si rewa khoran so leng in ba kare yo na ngala me rewa te ni nga na de ba de khoran so chi de nga na de yin si na ke yin si rewa ta nga ke de chi chama khoran so pa de khoran so zablen ro ro go do nga na cha tamji nge chur nga na de ba de khoran so ke ya nga na ke yin si ta de nga ne dong ji de ne ni tong ni ti de ni chi ya yo res ngaran kare na ha na o nga na de ba de sim chi tamji nga na de ba de ne yin la chi mana as rewa nga nge khoran so ke ya nga na ke yin si rewa ha ko de ba de dong da de
yeah, yeah, so actually there's a great point in this that I forgot to mention just now, that if you are sick and facing physical problems, then you should think that you are wishing that all the suffering of all sentient beings ripen in me, ripen in yourself, that you are sick because you're taking on all the suffering of all sentient beings, and then you're giving them your happiness and health so that they are well, and that is why you are sick, because you have taken on all the suffering of all other sentient beings. So there's actually a great meaning in thinking, practicing like this. So in this way, it will be a very good practice of Tonglen. And based on practicing like this, and one's own negativities will be purified, one's mind will be purified, because if you are thinking just about yourself, that I am sick, I'm suffering, then it doesn't help. But if you are thinking in that you're practicing the Mahayana, so you're suffering for all sentient beings, then you can really purify your own negativities and afflictions, and then automatically joy will arise in the mind. So even if you are sick in the body, you will be joyful in the mind, because you know it's a purification.
Okay, so the next question is about Rinpoche mentioned about one of the causes of suffering is having hope and fear. So as a human, before ourselves, we have many roles, from as a son or daughter to student, employee. Yeah, so many mundane roles, and each role comes with expectation. So with this expectation, we will wish to achieve like good and greatness. So how can we like avoid this kind of suffering?
Rinpoche ki di dungal ki gyuchi redok di ra redok la tenne dungal yongire ani chitang so mitse ringla di tambuling la lega dramindra yongire tambu loptruk che ni lega di tamala rewa chigyore ani rewa de so la tenne dungal yongi yena ni meba so ni kandes chegore rewa de so chik meba so
tan dor duna khoa donga se pro redo ni le choyong ale khoa khara re rewa to pa ni le choba res re ta tara ko Lulang is on the thing, I'll read out the years. Carson Tambon called leg Lulang was. The leg Lulang, the Tarayan read out the John the years. Did it tell it in the letter son, Yanko call and Condu was? Ten do, Tangaranchi, temperature and chair and do, Takarichi. To so this join Bahakond. Ta some not on the capsule jokes. Ta pen and lop jonges unari, net song Sawachi Jacunari, Pamju Drugunari, the Chepa Mandos, Chinachi Chogodos, Karichigo. Net lop Johnson only lop Jon Yapo sine, ne yen a pinto bachigo, some potato and road. Oya, Tange, Tonta kept some carried Drugun, oh, ne leka jet, but Tinti yen a ropachi cheating a chigos, Ben Naranzi Pochaya. Ben Naraya Pochaya, some of my town, yen a ropachi cheating a leka chickens. Just some of the cups of Jonathan did to us.
So,
Sancho Semchi and the China Leka Maji, Chiran Pamjo Madrup, Shiegumandoas. Chiran Kare Majis and Sem Yen, no Mazi, Leka Kare, and send Yen a pingos on the take and a tree. Young doas and Naranzuta, Yen a pingos, Parasimba drop, say a day. Chiran Leka Majituke, they allow Mundas, Parasimba Troki, Jimba Angoris. Chiran Jimba Tayaman Kare, Tayam in Katang, Rio Pamjo Godos. Oh, Mayimba, so Jogun and Nuba Godos. Mayimba Tablantung on Lobion Godos. Some Godos. Parasimba Lanito Godos. Go, take Goyak and Tunji Jogodos. Take Drubne, Tinite Drum, Drutang the Tangaki, Pimba, Yena Pimba, the Ropachi Bichit, Tinning a Chigi, some Tinny Kuhon Teta, which is Johnson Mayena. Touching the Tinny like a Karichi Payena. The nature and someone gave it just chanted to us. Didn't got the hack over to us.
that's all. So yes, samsara all comes from hope and fear. Samsara is created by hope and fear. And as long as we have a body, this body is created by karma from hope and fear. So because of hope and fear, samsara is continuing. And so now then we meet the Dharma, and then we learn that this hope and fear is faulty. So what should we do? We should turn around our motivation. So we should still do our studies, our business. We still earn money and work, but we should change our perception so that we are thinking that we are doing it not for our own benefit, but for others' benefit. So you do your work, but you do it with the motivation to benefit others, not just to benefit yourself. So this is how we should change our perception, so that we do it for others. So when you learn about bodhicitta, the teaching doesn't say that you should just sit and not do anything and not work. It doesn't say you should give up your work. It says you should change your mind. So when you practice the 6 perfections, the 6 paramitas, it doesn't mean you just sit still and practice, but you need to practice generosity. So you can only practice generosity if you have something to give, some wealth to give. And if you need to, when you want to help others, you need methods and ways to do that. And you need knowledge in order to show others how to do, to teach others, you need knowledge yourself. So with the motivation that you want to benefit others, then you do your work. And so you need to know this, that when you work with the motivation to benefit others, then your work becomes virtuous. So this is the key point that you have to understand.
We have another question, have same relation to this question. So like when we do work in our daily life, we will have situation whereby we will have others, like people we work with will hurt us. So how do we put this into practice, this bodhisattva practice?
Lega chedu sambuling la lega chegurwa ani dedu mi shemba sosula neba tange yongire lega chedu kale dinde yongire shen sosula neba tange ani dedu gyalse laglen kandres chegure
Dedu jase lani ti chege doa nuba tangna tuji che lagu doa
So this is definitely Bodhisattva practice when you say thanks to those who harm you.
Chira nga ge le ngi ba to ma chang ma so ro si do ngal ka ngi te do ase ka ngi tel tin ngal le ngi de ba ta do ase.
Because the harm that you give me is purifying my bad karma. So you are helping me to purify when you're giving me harm. So you're grateful for that.
Then chira long la ya ma do ase zu pa gong go do ase.
So you will not be angry at others, then you will practice patience.
Pa no se chi ya ma do ase.
And you will not harm them in return.
Then sang chu sem se ya de cha de ma na ma le samba de ning je se ti pa chim bo nyam ni si de samba de ning je yo re la shirab yan yo res. Samba de ning je shirab de song de de then yin la ya nu ma che ba ro yin la ya nu ma che ba then ra ni ge sa wa drip pa so yo res ta na.
So when we practice the Mahayana, then we're practicing loving kindness and compassion, and this is also combined with wisdom. So the wisdom in this loving kindness and compassion is that when we will not harm others, it causes us to not harm anyone else, but it also gives us abilities to practice ourselves.
Mari ra ni ge le ka drip pa ro.
We become able to accomplish our own activities.
Yes, good.
So also relating to this question, so like if we allow others to harm us or steal from us, like isn't it also like allowing them to accumulate negative karma? By doing like in practice in this way, isn't it allowing them to accumulate negative karma?
Di soso neba dange kuma gyya dang soso la neba dange di shen la dungal karsa shen de so lengen ba saga hi kokap de marebe konsu lengen ba saga de ninga tu di konsu lengen ba saga hi kokap de de marebe
Chirang mo yin bal ko ma kro chi ro. Then chirang de ji ko ma te ya ko kap te de na tin yin le ngi ba sa ya ko kap te ro as. Yin de chi ya ma do as. Cars mo yin be chirang ko ma jap so na chirang junon tho so wa yin na. Tin chirang tem thu ba ma ja as ta to da yu kyo as ta del pa ri sam tu ji che sam yu ni ya I go re la ko ta.
So you are not giving others the opportunity to steal, you're not helping them or giving the opportunity to harm or steal, but it's saying that if it happens that others steal your things, then you should not harm them in return, but but you should dedicate the things that have been stolen to them and wish them well.
So which is to say is to be mindful about our mind.
Does it mean to be mindful of our mind?
Yeah, it's more of like inward introspection about our mind instead of like about what others is doing.
Den der gælser laglen de sosugi eksempler der jeg tror det ved en simba misjengi lægger det som så mat der jeg gør det så ved så trinche
Jase la ne de so so ta ya re do as. So ju le ta nyo mo ba yo ko do es ro. Tene nyo mo ba yo wa yin na tene sa rang ge sen go nyo mo ba tam ji pa pa ya ro. Tene yin yul le tin rang la ta tene no che mo bo jong yo wa yin na. Delaya tene donlin chidang do donlin khare chi do ne cha khare chuwa yin ya rang de sem tel nyom bala chi mi ba ta dona nang na ta nang ba khona ta do ngoma te so so ta ya ba ha tene jase la ni tik ba chim bo de we chan ta tene nang na ta ne tene rang ge samba de nin ji te ya ja che ta ya rang ge nyom ba te ma mi par zo ya te khona re se rang ta ya rang che do gur sam ta ta chan chan ne.
Yes, it is mainly about looking at our own mind, mainly about recognizing and abandoning our own mental afflictions. And then whatever harm comes from others, we accept it. We accept whatever happens to us, and always look at our own mind. So especially when we practice the Bodhisattva practice of the Mahayana, it's always about our own mind to improve our own loving kindness and compassion and reduce our mental afflictions. So yeah, for all Buddhism, the main point is the mind. So we should always look at our own mind.
So another question would be like, as we practice the altruistic mind, we try like to observe some preset, like if like we always have situation like maybe friends or colleagues will want us to do something, like maybe invite us to eat meat and all this. How can we like avoid this kind of situation?
The Shenpen Kisem di Nyamlen Chedu, then this Lapcha Sungore, this Laglen Yabo Sungore, and he kissing to Tropo and Lega ki Tropo, that so Chilo la Shasayat in the Drenbo Puna, in the Shasaga short in the Labna, then he can this Laglen Chegore.
That Chirangone Shasa Mina. The Hachiness Hamina, the nature, oh, Masha Sagami, Labna Yapore, Chiranki Dimbala Nasha Sagamis, the Chirangi Ma the Shamazayang, Kelan Yapai, the name Shasami, and the Gish. Roa, Kazi Chiran Shasamina, the nature Shasayuna, the name Rumbo Puyana, the name Don and the Gish, San and the Gish. So, Matsutan Namba said. Chira sama kare sa yumi chira hiye mendo tikwa chimbo. Chira sengu samno kare tangudo. Roa, chira hieda katse chigido, chado katse chigido, docha katse chigido, tomo katse do te hiye do asen. Chira hia katse sado, chira ara katse tundo, tozo hira hiye mendo asen. Sem samno tandante hiye do asen. Te hako go res. Jodan chira hia mazuni ya go res. Yena ngazo tsa tende jigido pe chasaya pe dupori se ta chasana pe no se chimbori ta mangbo hye te ngune re ya po re te he ya po re se yena ya o chedan jigido chado jigido te ya po mari se ni hera mendo se mog chasaga do ya po mari se ni he nduni to soke teni chado mangbo jigido heda mangbo jigido zu mangbo lago do roa Mara Mambo Chigido, the Tson Jovachin Tangumedo. Tani Shasana Peshuich Zapchimbo, Re, Zapchimbo Re, Yena Hedan Lana Tele Zapchir, Chado Jena Tele Zapchir. Mayimba no such in Zap Tele Chatani, O Marita. Yes, Jim no such in. Oh, then it was so testy. Jimsin, the soy Hakon Pay a poet, so Nag, same with any Yomo Pang. Tomato titness and get a share or sometime.
If you don't eat meat, if you are vegetarian, then it's good that you tell them the truth when they invite you out to eat meat. It's good that you say that I made the decision, the promise not to eat meat. So then it's okay. You tell them that. But if you in general do eat meat, then it's okay that you go out and eat meat with them. And because the Buddhism and especially the Mahayana is mainly about our own mind and mainly about the mental afflictions of whether we have anger and desire and jealousy and pride, attachment in our mind. It's mainly talking about that, not mainly about our outer activities of whether we eat meat or drink alcohol and so on. It's mainly talking about the mind, but in general, of course, it's good to avoid eating meat. But so if we think that eating meat is very, very bad, then it's true, but but then if we don't look at how much anger we give rise to, or how much anger we have, how much jealousy we have, how much we lie or do other bad things, then actually this is much worse than eating meat. So if we think that it is so bad to eat meat, then actually it's worse to get angry. It's worse to get jealous. And there's no greater harm than harming sentient beings, to harming others. So Buddhism is mainly about looking inward and abandoning our mental afflictions.
We only left 1 minute. Shall we take one more question, or we can end the session? Rinpoche? Left 1 more minute. Yeah. Can take more question, or we shall end it. Then we continue maybe next session.
How many questions are left?
1 or 2. But one is not exactly related to the teaching. It's more about the practice and after taking empowerment.
Yeah, you can ask the questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is about, does receiving many empowerments but not putting them into practice have an impact on the master's happiness, long life, and activities?
Okay, see, Wang Mangbo Shuna, and the Yamlin Machena, then the Doji Lopin Deki said, and Deki, that's a Yam Gitabe, Yam Drogitabe.
Correct?
Doji Lopin de la Nugitabe, Kessin, Wang Mangbo Shuna, then in Yamlin, that's a Machena.
Oh, here's what this Mandawa you say, Kashi Yang Wang Mambush, the Nitamsing Masona Doji Hopper Nugri said, so you say. Kashi Nani, the young Agichazogolo, one show young cabinet in it, Angichazogolo. Chotan Salap and Nambachi Shuya Paina, the Nishada, Chotan Chenogo somebody, Tanganso, Gachirum Bochendina, the one Shuyana, Doji Hopper Chenugu Marisum to us. Chenugu Marizo, somebody ninja. That the day some town they buy in the Tamse Yabu Depa. Taken to get it to Sungu Yina ya. Mazu Chideri dot and some one Nangi Senate Mambo Shiviji Titan Tonanchi Roa. Mambo Chido, Cheta Yapo race. Yina ya. Do Duna choose say at the carriers and Soso Jura Tanchi. One thing Jura Tanji Nanga Chideri. Then that's Chedogolo. Rangi Duke in your Tama, the next in Lapsia, the name we are. And take Negado, Tit and Hakone. The name one she at the kitchen body, Telejan, Chiran one she at the Chiran Tebatana Roya, what was. This also like Suna Toya Chidder was not Toya Chidder was. Then it's all on Dorton, Snam Mama the Kawan told us. One do you like in the top of the years, job and it is one do you say at the carriers now. Round the same with Jula, the ninja down to by Nina. You are down to make anyone in the net of weary. There, mother one do you the Jim Atabayina, Hama over Ina. The listen up numbers and the mother only want to you the Mihaku. And then do Rangi Ju days and Joatango Tandor dinner. No more he got so no more Ju Mambo Yorway. So there's and Joatan. One might top the top is.
There are different explanations. So some do say that it can harm the Bhadra Master if you don't keep the samayas. There are some who say like that, but in general, if you take the empowerment in the form of blessings, it's a blessing empowerment, then like Gatin Rinpoche says, then there's no harm as long as you keep the loving kindness and compassion. If you practice loving kindness and compassion, then that is the samaya. As Gatin Rinpoche says, then there will be no harm if you don't do other practices after the empowerment. But nowadays, many people are very interested in empowerments, and they mainly want empowerments, but this is actually not the main focus of Buddhism. The main point of Buddhism should be to change one's mind, and only when one changes the mind, then the blessings can really enter one. So empowerments are of course important, and when you take the empowerments with faith and devotion, pure perception, then you do gain merit and blessings. But as Thigden Sumgen said, you have obtained the empowerment when you have understood the meaning. When you have understood the meaning of the empowerment, then you have received it. So this means that you have to change the mind. Only when you change the mind, transform the mind, then you have really received the empowerment. So if you don't know the meaning of the empowerment, then we don't know if the blessings really enter us. So in summary, we need to change we need to transform our minds, and we need to reduce our mental afflictions.
So also regarding like afflictive emotions or negative emotions. So like when negative emotions arises in our mind, how do we control it? What is a better method or way to control the negative emotion?
Cancer. Yuen mong ba semla shana semla yuen mong ba chik shana kina tani di kanres nyamlen chegore kare chegore.
Semla nyo mumba namto ro che yona ni te ni kare chi go serwa. Oh, te sana nyo mumba namto che yona te nyo mumba imba ha ko. Ni te namto de pa mi pa chi rewa. Tani chi go do asa. Namto ma chi go do asa.
So first we need to recognize that it is a mental affliction that has arisen, a negative emotion that has arisen. First we need to know that, and then we need to abandon it, remove it.
Penna nyomo ba hedang ro che yona de gi po kare sene hedang de ma che veche samba ko.
So for example, if anger arises, then we recognize that it's anger, and then we practice the antidote. So we eliminate the anger and practice loving kindness, the antidote.
Same time namto nyomo ba kare che so yena te tab tin dok so de sam ta tin tendre chen je wa ta na tin res.
So whichever mental afflictions arise in the mind, then we should practice the opposite, which are the antidotes. So it's good to practice like this.
Okay, I think that's all. There's some question is very closely related, so I sort of summarize together. Yeah, so that's all.
Oh yeah, tini ngana zo mo mo na so na de dos ro. Mo mo na de me da dan konde sa tini so ngin de ringbo ma so de do asa.
So yeah, then let's do the dedication and aspiration prayers, and it's okay if we do the short dedication.
Man ro an lab da dan konde se chi yor.
There's this that starts with I and
So nan de tamje zuba tini to ne choda.
or with this by this merit.
Oh yeah, tini.
Okay.
Sunamde. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and by defeating all enemies' confusion, the cause of suffering, may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara, in order to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality as it is. And just like Samatha Bhadra as well, I will completely dedicate all this goodness just as they did. By the blessings of the Buddha who attained the Trikayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging, changeless nature, by the blessing of the indivisible assembly of the Sangha, may all this prayer be accomplished as I have dedicated. By the virtuous accumulations of the 3 times of myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by this root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment.
Okay, enough.
Okay.
Oh, We have time, they can long dedication, you know. Time pass already, then short dedication, it is okay next time. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
See you next.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Also, you can do is continue homework. You read time books every day. Okay.
You next Saturday.
So see all of you next Saturday at 4 p.m. again in the webinar. Thank you very much. Rejoice.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rinpoche.
you, everybody.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you,
ありがとうございました。
Come on, Rinpoche.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
See you next time.
See you next week.
Thank you,
Thank
Rinpoche.
you, Rinpoche.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Take care, Rinpoche.
What? Okay. Oh.
Tasi Delek.
Bí nè bác chào bye bye.
That's it.
Bye bye. Everybody say bye bye.
Bye bye.
ありがとうございました。ありがとうございました。
Come on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.
ありがとうございます。
See you next week, please.
Take care of your health, Rinpoche.
Okay, bye bye everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye, Ma. ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
Bye everyone.
Nhìn nhạt lắm, thầy ngồi chờ cho hết rồi thầy mới đi.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Next week see you, Rinpoche. Thank you very much, Rinpoche. We miss you so much.
Okay, yeah. Thank you everyone.
Rinpoche.
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
Thank you so much.
Thấy cái đám mà thằng này chút
Okay, bye bye everyone.
Bye Rinpoche.
Rinpoche. See you.
Ai mà không quên đó đi. Thôi thầy đi thì con mới đi chứ. Ở đó thầy đi.
See you, Rinpoche.
ありがとうございます。
Rồi, thầy đi rồi đó.